our mission is to delight customers by delivering measurable business impact. At the end of the day, the most technical thing in the world has to translate to dollars or it's not getting funded again. Delight doesn't mean saying yes to every feature request or saying yes to every Snowflake implementation that we need to do to get them to a certain place. Delight means getting them to the right business and technical outcomes.
Welcome to another episode of Hold the Churn, the show where we go behind the scenes with the leaders shaping how companies retain, grow, and build real relationships with their customers as they scale. I'm Chandrika, co-founder of Quibbly AI. We put your customer growth on autopilot with our AI workforce. Today, we're joined by Shalabh Chaudhri, the head of customer engineering at Union AI, where he leads the team responsible for building long-term, high-trust relationships with customers in one of the most technically demanding corners of modern SaaS. Shalabh has spent his career at the intersection of technology, delivery, and customer outcomes, giving him a unique perspective on what it really takes to help customers succeed. Not just adopt software, but truly get value from the product. Shalabh, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Excited to do this.
Yeah. So Shalabh, I know your background spans program management, professional services, and now customer engineering at a fast-growing AI company. By the way, congratulations on announcing the recent fundraise. So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about your journey and how did you make the transition into customer engineering?
Yeah. So I always had customer-facing roles, starting in consulting, starting in Microsoft, helping internal teams, but then consulting. And then over time, they've evolved into focusing on very kind of technically sophisticated products for B2B customers. And that's been like the last decade. The last decade has been cloud, AI infrastructure. And because they're not like it's not a pure play SaaS solution. It's usually a platform as a service, sometimes even at the infrastructure level. It's a very technical solution. So the audience is different, where the problem sets they have and what they're looking for in terms of expertise changes from an account management, pure, kind of old school account management, to, at least in a technical B2B domain, to much more being builders right alongside your customers. That could be deploying a product, that could be configuring it, or helping customers build solutions on top of your product. So by nature of that, I think I've moved into customer engineering, where teams that I've built are around solutions engineers that are platform engineers or applied AI solutions engineers that are building solutions on these customer platforms that we deploy. So these are field functions. There's no playbook usually when I go in. There's no team. The fact that I've been at earlier stage startups, that's necessitated. It's a feature of early stage startups. Core engineering builds a product, and then you gotta need to get it in the hands of customers. So yeah, it came from the realization that the real value add from a customer facing role is not to just manage the customers or manage the relationship, which is important, but it's to also kind of technically enable them to be much more capable with your product and delivering it to their needs. So it's been a the situation has demanded that I moved into that role. I'm glad I did it. I love this side of things. And the old side of like the account management, not to call it the old side, but kind of the human side of it, I guess. Account management, making sure your stakeholders are represented adequately, their needs are being addressed, you're getting them promoted based on your product. Like those things are all still true.
Yeah. Rob, you all are at this interesting point in the journey at Union where you're growing too fast. And obviously, the team that you have is not growing linearly with the customer base. So how do you think about scaling that piece, scaling the relationships with these customers without compromising on the need to make sure that customers are still feeling that they're cared for as much as they were before?
Yeah. I want to say one is that I think a challenging part of a field organization is you can never go and ask for budget to scale the same way your customers are, right? So you can't linearly double, triple your team with customer size. So I think it's important to early on build the people, train for, make sure the people understand that the value that you're getting from the product. But the wrong answer is to have the same intensity across all customers once you've scaled to 2, 3, 4, 10 times of customers. So I think what you want to do is have earlier broad understanding of what strategic alignment and growth potential looks like at a particular customer, and not just ARR, because ARR kind of talks about where you are today or kind of what the near term looks like, but kind of more what is the lifetime value of this customer, what is that growth potential, what are some of the challenges that they have adopting your solution that are either unique to them or you can pattern match to something you've seen before, and making your time investments based on kind of that rubric of strategic value versus growth potential. So a smaller customer that has a 10x growth potential might need a little bit more care and attention than a larger scale or mid-tier customer that's found some stability in their growth trajectory of your product. The other thing is we built a model that we've talked to you guys about around looking at our customers from a objective view, from a quantitative view as much as possible. Qualitative matters too. But to assign customers, we assign customers across 3 different categories. We say, is this customer growing? So we call that like the grow category. Is this customer sustaining? Like, are they at a level where they don't have a lot of growth in the near future? Their business is not growing as fast. So we put them in that growth bucket. And then a sustain bucket where there's a churn risk, where there's a value realization mismatch. So we focus a lot on those second 2 categories, and these are based on leading indicators in terms of like how customers are engaging with you on the product roadmap, for example. Are they pushing the boundaries of your product? And so taking those type of signals and focusing more on those customers. And the last thing I would say is, I used to be in every customer conversation when we had a handful of customers. Now I can't be in every customer conversation. But it's about enabling your team and also making sure that you are not that central orchestrator for each account across accounts, that the team that you've built is both empowered and they have the confidence that the decisions and the judgment they're going to make, that you will back them, and if there was a mistake that they made, that you'll come and support them and rescue them. So it's democratizing, I guess, if you want to call that, and not kind of being that single individual managing.
Got it. Yeah. Good problems to have, right? Like these are the kind of problems we all want.
Yes.
Shalabh, I'm curious, what kind of systems do you have in place to then ensure that you're democratizing that process a bit more and enabling your team? And what does that look like at a tactical level?
Yeah. I think it starts with like hiring the right temperament of people. Temperament, judgment, mindset. This is challenging because we're in a very technical role. It's easier to hire technical ICs that are good at that technical aspect, but you have to also look for the ability to be consultative with customers, introspective with customers, not necessarily taking messages and information you get at face value and trying to dig into a little bit underneath on what's driving that ask. I love hiring product managers. I love hiring like engineers for our customer facing field engineering roles because they're curious by nature. So I know you asked about system, but I'm kind of focusing on the various systems, but I'm also talking about kind of the types of people. From a systems perspective, I think tools like Quivly and just the whole new suite of software that's coming up. There's the ability to track usage. Are there new patterns of usage emerging? So hiring people that are curious about the customer's organization, customer problems, uh, and folks that can kind of layer on the customer's business needs, technical needs, organizational complexity, organizational dynamics. I mean, enterprises are very complicated organizations, so folks that can navigate those organizations. Now, going to using some systems and tools, I think Quivly and others, being able to get a sense of the customer's usage in terms of in-platform, in-product usage. What are the patterns? Is there an increasing or decreasing trajectory of those patterns? Are new and higher baselines being formed in terms of usage? And it's okay if usage declines. You just have to be able to explain it. Uh, Similarly, the level and depth of engagement that they have with us, systems that help us both manage that in a very seamless way. So it should be easy for customers to reach out to us. It should be easy for customers to ask, self-help. At the same time, if they want to talk to an engineer, let them talk to an engineer. So systems that enable that, and then allowing customers to have deeper, meaningful conversations on what the product is doing for them today. What does their future look like from a technical and business perspective, where our product needs to kind of evolve in a certain way, and having a very partnership type of discussion, and not just being an order taker or kind of being a very tactical task issue support ticket oriented person. And the third thing I'll say is meaningful engagement at all levels. We follow a process where we call kind of 1, 2, 3 stakeholder engagement. We use some systems to facilitate this, both kind of outbound messaging, thought leadership at the executive level, at the technical level, and making sure that we're establishing those relationships, keeping a close eye on those meaningful conversations, and kind of sucking all that data into a system and getting an actual true assessment of what that customer feels about Union.
To share a bit more context with the audience, Shalabh, could you say one or two lines about what Union exactly does for customers?
Yeah. So Union has its roots in AI orchestration. So it is orchestrating AI and machine learning pipelines. So we started with very much kind of the traditional AI workloads. It's interesting that we call it traditional or classical ML now because things are moving so fast. But data processing, feature engineering, model training, model inference, batch, real time, to now running agentic cases. So we provide a platform and an SDK to build AI solutions on top of. So it's a very deeply integrated platform to the infrastructure itself. It's not just a library, it's native deep integration. It just allows for better compute management, better developer experience, massive scale, durable pipelines. It is a foundational horizontal layer to build any sort of AI application on top of. And the last thing I'll say is we've got 6,000 plus customers in our open source community, dozens in our kind of commercial side of the business, and it spans from autonomous driving to biotech, new enzyme discovery, protein folding.
Love it. Well, Shalabh, we were talking about how you can no longer be in every single conversation that you're having with customers, which is what you used to be able to do when things were getting started and you all were smaller.
Mhm.
Same goes for everybody across the leadership team, I imagine, right? So, how do you ensure that the customer voice, the unfiltered nuance, still reaches all decision makers across the organization so that you all can make better, more informed decisions about what customers truly need?
Yeah. So I do. So yeah, I'm not in every meeting. So for what we've done is we've created an account management plan. So what we do with each customer, we deploy the customer in their cloud environment as a managed Kubernetes deployment. So before we start that, we understand from the customer what is their use case for Union, why did they, and this comes from sales as well, but why did they select Union to begin with? We get a clear picture of why Union and what are some of the aspects about Union that are particularly meaningful to them. So we start building a narrative and a deep understanding of the customer from the get-go in terms of what does success look like for this customer now and then down the road. And then we move that into an account plan. And the way we are doing it now, where I am not the one creating those account plans and executing those account plans, we have solutions leads that we've hired, and we keep pods of solutions engineers, both on the platform side of things and applied AI side of things, that become these individuals that support these customers' adoption journey with Union. Um, but going back to the account plans, we build these account plans with very clear statements in mind that we ask the customer to tell us. We give the customer our interpretation, because what I've learned is when you give them something and it's 80% correct, they will engage a lot more meaningfully to help you fix it versus telling, what do you want from us? But we'll give them a mutual success definition. We anchor everything on that mutual success definition. The account plan builds out on that. The execution of the account plan follows, again, that mutual success agreement and definition that we have. And the solutions team, the solutions lead, the solutions engineers, they work pretty autonomously with these customers to make that mutual success outcome become real, whether that is around a new feature that we need to build that we take back into the product lifecycle, or evangelizing within communities. And the way I keep my fingers on the pulse is using tools like Quibly, kind of going in and getting an assessment of health, looking at our engagement in meetings and tickets, in GitHub contributions that our customers might be making, PRs that they're working with, and so I'm looking at it from a bird's eye view and kind of digging as needed. And then there's other mechanisms that we do. We do a weekly kind of account review process where we go through the accounts that need the attention. I do an SLT meeting where I talk about kind of what are some of the customers, handful of customers that are positive stories, but more importantly, customers that need some help. And an all hands perspective, we make sure that our entire company knows how our customers are using our product, what challenges they're running into, because it is very important that field teams don't become kind of a barrier between core engineering and customers that are using the product. So much so that we put our entire core engineers in an on-call rotation as first line support individuals and not even escalation. So yeah, I've stepped away, but like all these mechanisms that we put in place kind of help the system run on its own, and we bring to light the right things that need to be communicated up, sideways, or downstream.
A lot of post sales in software, Shalabh, has been about keeping customers happy,
Hmm.
which doesn't always mean making customers successful. How do you think about the two together, making sure that the customers are actually getting value out of the product and are happy and are growing and are able to do the job that they hired Union to do?
Yeah. Um, I actually don't like the keep making customers happy because, and it's it because it. So what we've done about it is we've tied. I think our mission is to delight customers by delivering measurable business impact. At the end of the day, the most technical thing in the world has to translate to dollars, or it's not getting funded again. So it's we want to delight customers, but delight doesn't mean saying yes to every feature request or saying yes to every Snowflake implementation that we need to do to get them to a certain place. Delight means getting them to the right business and technical outcome. So we anchored our mission on measurable business value and impact. We ask our customers to quantify that for us in terms of what it means for them. If they are trying to get a drug to market in a certain time period, maybe that's the definition for that customer. Or if another customer is trying to deploy autonomous driving in a certain part of the world and they need data processed for that thing, we call that the business outcome. So that if we get the customer to that business outcome, they've been delighted. And then we also shift from thinking about how is the customer feeling, the satisfaction, CSAT, NPS. I think these are good data points, but on their own, they can be a little bit misleading. It's less about not, they still matter, but you want to combine the satisfaction with what outcome, what did we accomplish for this customer as a result of Union? And if you can marry the two, I think you're delighting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those two, as you rightly said, are misconstrued often, happy and successful, but they're actually very different things. And I think business outcomes, the focus on business outcomes is what I feel like the world is already shifting towards, and it's much needed. What patterns do you see in how customer relationships change over time? You've had some customers, I'm sure, that have stayed with Union since the very beginning. And how do you make sure that they still continue to feel valued even if they're no longer the biggest customers that you have? They are in maybe the long tail of customers, as some companies would classify them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, those customers, yeah, that's like a dangerous category of customers, that have been with you for like 2 years and there's no major incidents or issues that are coming. And so, yeah, I think what we've learned as a team and what we really look out for are, you know, if any of us make a statement, they've been pretty quiet. That's a red flag for us sometimes. Uh, and again, it's a red flag until we can explain it. So we've got a forcing function internally to look at customers with little to sometimes no activity in a certain period of time, just so we're not falling into that set and forget it kind of aspect of accounts. And it is a cultural kind of mind and almost like a mindset type of thing to start thinking about it that way, where if a customer is not engaging, they're quiet, or they've reached a certain stability scale, the next conversation that we should be having with them is, what is the next level? Where do we take you from here to move you up the value chain, whatever that looks like to your organization? And if we can have that conversation, now sometimes companies struggle and they just, they are kind of plateauing. That's a different, category of customers. But customers that have new needs that are emerging, inquiring what those needs are, understanding what those needs are, making sure that our product can meet those needs. And if it can't, being that partner, telling them that it can today and it will in a future type of scenario. So it is, watching out for set it and forget it type attitude. Customers quiet does not mean they're happy, or could be they're happy, but doesn't directly mean that they're happy. And then kind of being on that new use case motion. Okay, they're happy with what they're running today. What is the next use case? What else can we bring onto the platform? Can we scale the existing use case? So using both uh, engagement, interaction, usage of the platform, those data points to
Got it. Have there been any instances where a customer's not gotten as much business value and you found out about it in a surprising way where you didn't necessarily know that? And how did you and the team learn from that and change things to make sure that that doesn't happen with future customers?
Yeah, it has. It was just kind of what we were talking about in terms of like a set and forget it type of mentality.
Yeah.
So we had a customer that was a very early customer with us. Maybe our fifth or sixth customer, and some of it is kind of early products, early companies. They they start in one. They figure out the market is somewhere else, and they shift their capabilities so they're a little bit adjacent or different than where we started. So this was a little bit of that. And the customer's profile had also changed. They were hiring a lot of DIYers who wanted to take our product and kind of do some very cool custom things with it. And then later on, they kind of moved away from that model. So, but how this all came to, I mean, we were in a set and forget it mode. It was they are our customers using our platform. They're using it at the same level that they've used it for the past 6 or 7 months. We talk to them and they say, no, everything's good, everything's great. It's union's working great.
Yeah.
But kind of, if had we dug a little bit deeper and not taken it at face value, we would have found out that the customer's business was changing. Whereas the DIYers were no longer the way they were approaching. They were looking for more packaged products that would help them get up and running quickly, where ours is a very, very powerful solution that allows you to build and configure and deploy it in very different modalities. And that was no longer the case. And we didn't dig deep enough on that, that their needs were changing and that our product was no longer the right fit for that. So what we did since then was what we were talking about earlier a little bit, not taking everything is great at face value, asking, having engagements at various levels of the organization, our engineers talking to their engineers, my CEO and CTO talking to their CEO, CTO, and then I would be in all kinds of conversations and making sure that all those individuals feel that their needs are being met in whichever shape or way or form that is right for them. But yeah, set it and forget it type of thing has bitten us in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, have there been instances when you won some customers back, and what's gone into that? What kind of effort has gone into that, and what has that led to in terms of maybe some systemic changes or some process changes at Union?
Yeah, we have. That's a that customers leave and they come back. That happens quite a bit, and I think that's happened in scenarios where, again, like I said, our solution is very it's very configurable, it's very customizable, it can be deployed in a lot of different modalities, and there's a whole DIYer type of community. There's a category of customers, and I'm guilty sometimes, is where I say I could build this, or I could build this, or I could run this, and we've had customers do that. They said, okay, yeah, union's been running, it's doing great. And whether it be pricing or their budget has changed. So we've had some customers that have decided to we have an open source solution, as I mentioned, so they've decided to go and build with the open source solution. And the open source solution will get you so far, and it'll work in a pretty decent scale and sophistication, but it's not going to scale to the levels Union can because we have a whole team building it. And so when that happens, what the team and what we do is we talk about similar journeys that our other customers have been on, where we talk about total cost of ownership. It's not building something is a one-time thing. Maintaining it is the challenge. Keeping it up to date, adding new functionality. I don't think that argument or that concern changes with vibe coding either. I think it actually creates a bigger problem there, and especially if you're running in an enterprise space. I mean, I'm creating tools for myself all day, which is a different thing. But if customers start to think that way, we talk to them about total cost of ownership. What are some of the maintenance challenges you take down the road? Not just at the time where they're thinking about leaving, but throughout the process in our monthly check-ins and our QBRs. We talk about all the work we're doing behind the scenes in terms of kind of scaling their infrastructure for them and kind of not having them worry about Kubernetes upgrades or database upgrades. And all they have to do is build a solution and we take care of the infrastructure underneath. A lot of times when a system runs so well, customers forget all the work that the company's putting in to make that happen. So we bring that to the surface in more regular conversations with customers. And last thing I'll say is should they make that choice to kind of move on and go build it themselves, or in some cases go to a competitor where we know that competitor is not the right solution for them because we know their use case and needs so well, we're not going to fight them, and we'll say, this exact same contract will be available for you when you come back. It's not a punitive thing to say if you leave now, it's going to be 2x later or anything like that. It's more saying, okay, we've given you all the information we've given you some referrals and folks you can speak with, but if you still choose to make that choice, come back and, we'll pick up where we left off.
I like that. To your earlier point about build versus buy, that's such a hot topic right now. I think everyone's talking about should we vibe code everything we use or not? And
Yeah,
Redpoint recently came out with this report. I think they had a really powerful slide in there where they talked about for an organization that would pay, say, $200,000 for Slack every year, the total cost of ownership of building, maintaining something like Slack would be like $2 million.
of course.
So it's I think often companies, especially right now, I think there's so much almost chaos around it, right? Like everyone's trying to figure out like how do we use these horizontal agentic solutions and build stuff internally? What can we actually vibe code and make do with like a 70-80% solution versus what do we need the 100% on, and a dedicated team that's like their entire job is obsessing over the details. I think the one thing I come back to again and again, and I've heard from other people now, and it's resonating, is knowing what good looks like, right? Even for us, we are working with dozens of customers that are seeing different kinds of, use cases, and we're able to often tell our customers by the virtue of that, like, this is what good looks like in your industry.
Yep.
This is what, the range is for specific metrics that you're using Quibbly for, whether it's moving your NRR, expansion revenue, things like that. And that's often a big missing piece if you're just building stuff internally and vibe coding, because like you're
Yeah.
going to do stuff your way. You don't know what good looks like.
Yes. 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 Yeah, and sometimes kind of just having that discussion, usually not in a group, one-on-one, to say, at the end of the day, describe to me what type of company you are. They'll say, well, we're a biotech company, we're building new enzymes. And, my question then is, well, why do you want to be in the distributed system space? Right?
Yeah.
Let us take care of that. So, no, you're totally correct. Yeah, it's a hot topic right now.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon has this culture. I think Jeff Bezos had this quote of do what makes your beer taste better, which
Yeah,
is because it came from apparently back in the day in Germany, every brewery used to generate their own electricity. And that's how the grid system came about, because they realized that like generating their own electricity was not making their beer taste better. So focus on doing what makes your beer taste better.
right. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I like that. I like that. I hadn't heard that actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, yeah. What Switching gears a little bit, Shalabh, talking about team culture, leadership, alignment. You've talked a little bit about how you hire people, what kind of characteristics you look for when you bring people on, curiosity in the team. Coming to team alignment, how do you work with other teams? How do you work with product, sales, engineering to make sure that the customer context and nuance that is part of your role and the conversations you're having with customers is visible and apparent to them, and it's not just living in the customer engineering world.
Yeah, I like this question. I think the mistake a lot of times field organizations make is either they become possessive about the customer, and I've done this in past jobs, or where they become think they're the conduit for the customer into the rest of the org, and it's not scalable. The messaging gets lost. So I think the way I work with other teams is kind of not thinking of my kind of field organization as like the inform kind of conduit into product and engineering. And not operating from a lens of reports and summaries that we're delivering to product and engineering. I want the raw signal. I want the raw feedback going to the engineering organization. So what we do is we have one. I said we put our engineers on call, and this is something that I had asked for quarters. It took me like 2 or 3 quarters to convince engineering leaders were on board, but like not every engineer wanted to do this, and they said you can escalate to us, and I said no, you have to be the first person that answers it, and so. We put that in place, and every engineer talks to customers on and on call rotation. That's a week long, every 4 weeks. It's not a once a year, twice a year type of thing. Every 4 weeks, every engineer is on a week long rotation. So it's putting the engineer directly in the customer, line of usage and paper cuts and frustrations. And it's amazing how quickly engineers will uh, pick up on that signal and kind of the next time they build something around, or even if they put a fix in for the issue that they're kind of working with the customer on, that cycle, that customer engineering iteration cycle just gets cut down so fast. Now, I also know this doesn't work in every org. You run through product orgs, like we're a very kind of flat org. So it works well that way. Our solutions engineers talk directly to various engineering leads, whether it be backend, front end, SDK, around themes that we're seeing across customers. That's in addition to this direct raw feedback. Um, I we do in our like all hands meetings. It's not a rah rah. It's not a pat ourselves on the back and say, look at this usage or revenue there. I mean, we celebrate our wins, but we spend the bulk of our time in all hands talking about a specific customer's deployment pattern, usage pattern, how that is enhanced or negatively affected by how Union is built or how Union does things. So it's getting the engineering organization to get both one-on-one customer interaction, but also a kind of a big picture view of how that customer is using Union and how they've deployed it and what they're using it for and how they're running into issues. And it makes it meaningful for engineering. The last thing is, just kind of making sure that in our product roadmap, in our development lifecycle release planning, we are considering customer usage and customer readiness as a first class deliverable. Code complete, test complete, functional test complete, all that is great, but documentation, full blown documentation, user experience, all that needs to be considered in the product lifecycle itself. And when I am in product planning meetings or my team is we ask those questions, and kind of like again Amazon thing where you have that empty seat in the meeting that represents the customer. Us trying to push that into the organization. The good thing I'll say is it's not that hard to do because our entire company, CEO down, is very customer centric.
That's awesome. Yeah. We talked a little bit about this set it and forget it type thing, and I want to go back to it because the opposite of that is many organizations that we speak with mistake activity for a great relationship. So they see a lot of activity and they're like, oh, amazing. The customer is using the product, they're using more of it. May not always be the case, right? They might be using more of the product because they're not able to figure it out and they're like trying a bunch of things.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, when you think about signals like that, what has been surprising that you have found through iteration at Union, signals that didn't mean much, but you were over indexing on, or the other way around, where signals that were, powerful signals that you all were missing out on or what we're not measuring as actively?
Yeah. The one that comes up a lot is our champion loves us, so everything is great type of thing. That's champion is one person, champions leave, and then there's a whole set of problems. So I mean that's like a low hanging fruit that you see almost everywhere, and the way we've got around that is just to go deeper and wider into the organization. The 1, 2, 3 stakeholder model that I talked about: one executive level champion, two mid level champions, and three frontline champions. People that will, if a CFO says, "Well, do we need union? I need these 6 people," going, "No, you're not cutting union." So you need to build that level. The other thing, I QBR attendance where there's no like meaningful engagement or even like monthly attendance or our regular sync ups that become kind of just more of a checkbox type of thing. Want to be successful QBR, a monthly meeting or any type of customer meeting is where I discover something surprising or something that is a little alarming that we didn't know about. Surprising being, hey, we're using your product. It's so much easier for us now. So many teams are onboarding on their own. Great. We didn't know that. I want new information in every engagement, in every meeting, whether that be positive. And actually, I want more negative new information than I want positive. So, you know, when QBRs or monthly engagements don't have a lot of meaningful dialogue, and tense customer meeting is not a bad. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad one. It means a customer feels comfortable enough with you to kind of raise those issues and they think you'll do something about it versus just kind of not even bringing them up or kind of finding workarounds on it. The last thing I'll say is, it's similar to what I was talking about, but kind of the relationship depth. How keenly and how deeply does a customer engage you? Does a customer tell you about their problems either in the industry or in their domain or what they're building before they tell internal people? Like before, you know, I was working at the VP of engineering at a company that's a customer of ours, and he was sharing with us his fears, his challenges about what his team is doing well or not doing well, not just about our product. He was talking at that level. And that is a very durable, kind of meaningful relationship that we thankfully have with this customer because they consider us as a true confidant, one, that they're willing to share. And second, they say, how do the rest of your customers handle something like this? So, kind of having that and not just taking activity for activity's sake, but looking at the meaningfulness and depth of those conversations.
That's such a good point about becoming the trusted advisor for your customers, right? Where they're coming to you before even going to somebody else internally or reaching out to their peers to ask these questions. The way that you've been able to do this with this particular customer, is there something there that you can replicate across other customers, or are there patterns or things in particular that you've done, your team's done well with this customer that's given you, or you've been able to earn that right to be the trusted advisor for them?
Yeah. It's being trusted advisors for a deeply technical solution has its own set of challenges. And I think like engineers don't engineers trust. You could say they're trust and verify, but it's hard to earn engineering trust, whether it be a VP of engineering or a frontline engineer, especially for like newer product and all of that. So I think credibility over time. If I could replicate this somewhere else, there's been a lot of not so positive engagements and issues that have happened in the past. But we have responded well to those. We have responded in a very pragmatic, very kind of transparent type of manner to talk about why certain issues on the platform have come up and what we missed about the design that we should have done differently or what we didn't understand about their use case to engage with them meaningfully. So all this to say is this level of engagement comes after some trust is built. Trust is built by making mistakes. Like trust, some mistakes. You can't be just like a blunder mistake after mistake. But there's got to
Yeah.
be some mistakes that you've managed well. But uh, and you've addressed those, and then you have a track record of kind of improving on them and not repeating those mistakes, and getting the customer more and more sophisticated and successful with your product and what they're building. So a lot of this has come from doing that, having meaningful engagements. And one thing I try to do with our field team and even at the company level is you can't be in a B2B space, especially, you can't be what I call like a widget seller, a widget
Mm.
provider. A platform is not the only thing you're delivering. You have to deliver overwhelming expertise that is top tier, like in the market, in terms of not just using our platform, but how, at the end of the day, how can we help our customers build better AI enabled products? Smaller startups, we're Series A startup. You don't always have that capability. You don't have a team in place that can kind of go and do that. So you need to hire people that have built solutions that are adjacent to what you're building, where they can provide customers with that type of real world input. So becoming a subject matter expert on
Mm,
the domain, on the industry, on the problem space, in addition to just being a platform provider.
yeah.
I think that is also trust perspective.
Yeah. And that's another good reason for the build versus buy argument to be in favor of buy oftentimes, right?
Yes.
You are working with a group of experts, subject matter experts that are thinking about and obsessing over that one particular area day in, day out. And you don't always have the luxury of doing that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. If I see hundreds of customers, I can pattern match you to that, a
Right.
certain, and I can help you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, looking into the future a little bit, Shalabh. So, you're a leader. You're thinking about what's coming ahead, in addition to everything that's going on right now. How are you preparing for the next phase of this journey that Union's on, and what are the top things on your whatever project management board you're using that are like, these are the top two or three things that you're thinking about all the time?
Yeah. I think I love being at like earlier stage companies or even later stage companies that have fast iteration cycles. And I think what what we are learning from our customers, I want to build a actually, let me back up on this. I think what's happening today is we're a horizontal platform. We are enabling customers of all sizes. We have Toyota and other companies of that size, and then we have 10-person startups that are doing some very cool stuff and very well funded. But those two work very differently in terms of like organizational dynamics, what's important to them, and our product can't be a one size fits all type of solution for those very different profile of customers. Now they're building, both of them, big and small, are building something very ambitious things on top of Union, and their scale and sophistication can be matched sometimes. But a smaller customer doesn't have a DevOps team in place. They don't have Kubernetes cloud engineers to kind of help with stuff. So what I am focused on is how do we get the time to customer value? Now, how do we shrink that time to customer value down even more and do it in a way that doesn't stress the entire company, the entire team by doing heroics and kind of just overwhelming effort to get these customers successful? How do we systematize things? How do we cut time to value and get customers up and running faster on our product to build whatever solution they have on their horizontal platform? So I am looking for data. I'm looking for these insights. I'm looking for, I think you and I have talked about aha moments. Like I want to know when that first aha moment's happening. I want to know what that moment is for this type of customer versus that type of customer. And for a while, last year, I was kind of doing it through Fathom calls. That doesn't scale, but now I can actually kind of build tools myself and do some of that. But that's the biggest thing on my
Hmm.
mind. How do I get customers to a much faster time to value, that aha moment captured earlier, uh,
Hmm.
while keeping in mind these very different profiles of customers that we're working with, and we got to meet both.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know we're working on some stuff together. I'm excited to talk more about that offline. Last question for the pod, Jalab. There are folks listening who are a little bit earlier in their career. They are probably in FDE, customer success manager, customer engineering, solutions engineering roles, and they're getting started. What would be one piece of advice you would have for these folks as they continue to be in these very customer focused roles?
Yeah. Um, these customer focused technical roles, um, you know, it is be a builder, kind of build solutions, build products, build examples. When I interview a solutions engineer and I ask for their GitHub profile or I look for it and I don't see many PRs on there, to me that's a little disappointing. It's like a lost opportunity
Yeah.
where where, you can talk to me all about what you've done, and I will take that into account. I'm not discounting that. But if I can see what you've built, if I can kind of get a little taste of that, for me, that gives me a lot more comfort and just a lot more confidence in that person. It shows initiative. It shows, I talked to an engineer who was like, I love English Premier League. I was interviewing him. He's like, it's hard for me to keep up on all the data. I built this RAG pipeline that just gets all this data. And I was like, thank you. Like, just this is what I would tell folks is I think it's have a portfolio of things that you built. And in addition to talking about the experience that you've had, be able to demonstrate some of that capability. And the other thing I would add is if you're a technical person, and you want to go heads down and you want to build things, by all means. But if you're going to be a customer facing engineer, solutions forward deployed, integration, you have to kind of keep that context alongside the customer context about how does this customer, what are this customer's technical constraints, business objectives, where are they on the maturity curve? Like some customers are just not ready for sophisticated solutions. So your technical solution that you build has to be right sized to that customer's and all of that. So if you're technical, think about business and organizational dynamics, and have a portfolio of stuff you've done, created.
Yeah. No, proof of work is such an easy way to stand out. It's never been easier than it is
Yes,
today.
yes,
So yeah, it's like one of those things which candidates often forget about when they're interviewing. But yeah, it's such an easy way to stand out. And yeah, if you're listening and if you're interviewing for roles, if you're from people who've been hiring, we love proof of work. So yes, give us more proof of work.
absolutely.
Shalabh, is there anything that you were hoping we would talk about we haven't gotten to yet?
I covered a lot of ground. No, I think I love love working with your team. Love working with you guys. I think for me, the vendors that truly stand out are the ones, just like what I am trying to do with our customers. I love vendors that do that with us. In terms of meaningfully engaging. The other day, 10A or CTO, like, I had a one-line thing where I said, I'd love to have this. And he asked me, a bunch of questions. Well, what do you mean by that? What does it look like? Why do you want this? So yeah, just love that type of engagement. And I think both that's what I try to do for our customers. And I love the fact that you guys do the same. So no, just a comment on that. But aside from that, I think we're pretty good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. The feeling is very much mutual. We love working with you all. It's been great getting your feedback and getting your input in helping us shape the product as well. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
And
excited.
this has been fantastic. So thank you so much for joining us on the pod. Where can people connect with you, Shalabh, if they have questions, they want to follow up, they want to reach out? Where can they find you?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is the best one. Just my first name, last name after the LinkedIn URL.
Amazing. Well, thanks again. And we'll continue the conversation offline.
Thank you for
Bye.
having me.